Well, hello everyone. Happy Monday. Wow, we have nearly 70 people in the crowd, and no one has posted it on the chat yet. So I hope everyone is well. We had a bit of snow last night. Nice. I think it's the last spring snow. It's quite chilly. Heard the same thing about Germany, though. So, yeah, we have many seasons the last few weeks. And again, welcome, Freddie, Vinicius, Joan. And yeah, today we are going to talk about particles. But before we talk about anything, I want to go through the housekeeping. So let me do this. And very quickly, if you go to the Maxon events page, you will see all the upcoming videos. And the one we are starting today is the Cinema 40 Particles series for April and May. And today we're going to say a few basic things, and this is the link. But in the following weeks, we're going to have some extremely well-versed artists. They do great work with particles. So next week is Vladislav Zolovyov or Solovyov. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. Then we have my very good friend Daria Ozduk. And then we have my other very good friend, Andy Needham. So make sure you don't miss these shows. Now, if you want to ask questions for the Ask the Trainer series, go to this page over here. You can see, let me just start copying and pasting some links over here so you have everything. I'm self-producing today, so I promise things could go funny. So this is where you will find the various questions. And this is the Maxon events page over here. I'm going to say my greetings when I'm done pasting. And of course, if you miss any of these videos or just want to watch them replay or put them on loop and watch them all day long, go to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel and you can catch all the videos with timestamps and nicely organized. And of course, the Maxon YouTube channel offers an amazing plethora of videos. The Maxon ZBrush channel, and let me do my pastes, right? I'm forgetting to do this just so that you don't have to type things. We are very considerate of your time. And here is the Maxon YouTube channel, and here is, and just go and learn ZBrush, right? Just do yourselves a favor and quit all the other hobbies you have. This is the Maxon certification page. Go and read the stuff. I'm going very fast through these and pasting my links. The topics list gives you an overview of the things we require essentially for knowing Cinema 4D so that you can be productive. And of course, as a token of appreciation for your participation in these shows, go to this link over here and use the new code for the following month, and including today, Particle Magic, because particles are magic. Now, in case you missed it, that's ICM, IUMC, IYMC, something like that, the acronym, in case you missed it. I've made some tutorials about particles. So if you want to get into the basics, this one here, this series over here, is an overview, very general overview, interface and stuff like that. Then the various settings and tools we have, which is this series here. And I've started populating this, which I'm going to continue over the next few months, with various how to do techniques. But since you're going to be here, go and check out all the other fantastic tutorials that friends, colleagues, and your colleagues as well, artists, prepare for us. And yeah, you can spend your lives just studying these things and enjoying yourselves. And of course, don't forget to visit the old Cineversity, where it has centuries of knowledge. And check out the fantastic and very technically detailed tutorials by Dr. Sassy, although they were made many a year ago and are in older interfaces. They're always quite relevant in terms of their information. That's how timeless our good colleague and friend Dr. Sassy is. He makes something, it's worth, the more time passes, the more its worth increases. Okie dokie. So let me show my face here and say my greetings. Let's quickly go and see all the hellos. Joseph and Christine, and oh, my friend Sharon. Hello, Sharon. And Marina. Hello. Odd Loot, Toronto. Okay, I'm only about 7 hours, including my stops. From there, Andreas, my motion graphics, Thomas, and we have someone from Montreal. We have Vinicius from Brazil, Video Studios. Yes, plethora. It's a Greek word. Plethora means a lot. I think the word plural comes from plethora. So what else do we have here? Jay, hi. And Meg and Ken and Juan. And who was from Montreal? I saw something from Montreal. Where are we streaming today? Yep, we're streaming there. I want to see my neighbor. There you go, Johan from Montreal. Did you get enough snow? We got about, I would say, an inch, that fluffy, sticky stuff. But it's already gone since this morning. It's warming up here. We're going to have some fantastic days next week. Go out, enjoy nature, and have some fun. And with that said, let's talk about particles. Now, because this session is not optimized for reply to questions, that's the Alpha Trainer, but I will. I cannot help myself. I have to accommodate any questions. If we can keep them towards the particle thing, just to keep the theme going. And if you can preface whatever you write with a capitalized word question, that will make it easier for me to look at the questions and see them in a glance. So, because I don't have any other help today. So you are my helpers. I gave you the Greek finger. You are my helpers. All right, let me share a screen here. Let me do that. I'm going to leave my little shiny head over here in the bottom left corner. And no questions. Good. Let's talk about particles. We have 140 people watching. I am very much impressed. I'm going to put a gum in my mouth, have a sip of coffee. Cheers to everyone, whatever you're having. And let's talk about particles. So this is a new particle system written from the ground up, and it's GPU accelerated. It works in GPU. It's performant, and it can only get better. So I've created a little interface. Go to the overview series, and if you don't know how to make palettes and attach them to the interface and all that, if you need anything, it's in the simulate menu. And we have the emitters, 4 emitters, which is this group here, groups, which are these 2 little thingies, conditions, these over here, and modifiers. We have 4 groups of modifiers. And for anyone, please, if anyone is good at particles, they already use some sort of plugin or use thinking particles or standard particles and all that. I'm going to do the 5-minute overview. And basically, particles are dots. If you take any object, let's say a sphere, and make it editable, and you take the point. So I'm going to select all the polygons. I'm going to Shift Delete, and this will allow me to keep the points. All right. In case you didn't know that, if you press Shift Delete, you keep the points. If you just press Delete, it deletes everything, including the points. So these are points. All right. And there's nothing particular about them. We can use them though. So if you take a cloner and you add a sphere, have a good measure, always make it render instance, multi-instance, sorry. And if I tell the cloner to become an object, and I put this here and set my object to clone on points, oh, well, why isn't it cloning on my points? It should clone on my points, and it's not cloning on my points. That is something I need to address. In any case, maybe I just need instances. Oh, yeah, I'm distributing on surface. So this is user error. If you're distributing on the surface, there is no surface. I thought I clicked points. In any case, if you go to vertex, now for each and every one of the points, we get a little sphere. And imagine now that the particle system is a way to generate points, but these points have a specific type of behavior. They can move, they generally react in time, and they can carry some attributes. So talking about attributes, very quickly, let's see what attributes these are. When you create any of the emitters, you get a particle group. The one thing you need to remember is that the emitter is the set of instruction for the generation of these particles. what are they going to do the moment they're generated on frame 1? That data is sent to the GPU, and the GPU now is generating these points. The particle group is the point object that holds all that data. And I'm going to press play, and we're going to see nice little green particles. Here are my little dots. And coincidentally, if you go to points mode with the particle group, you can see how many you have here. And if I right click on this and say current state to object, you see that we get a polygon object. Let me delete these two. Oh, I'll just deactivate them. You get a polygon object. And this polygon object, if you go to points mode, has these points. And these points hold some attributes. And some of them, like lifetime, and it has double underscore in the front and double underscore on the end, just to create these unique names. Distance, radius, and age. And then we have these vector points, which, although they are colors, because a color is RGB, so it can hold any arbitrary vector, we have angular velocity, and that's the rate of spin. We have the alignment where they're facing. We have their actual velocity, the direction and speed they're traveling with, and traveling in, and of course their color. And this is an RGBA value. And internally, what's happening here is that particles hold that data every frame, and that data gets manipulated based on what we are doing. So let me delete this polygon object. Let me just go here and delete it. And if you're ever in doubt, what are these attributes and how we can use them, just go to the particle group, go to the cache, because we can automatically save these as Alembic files. And if you untwirl this little arrow here, this one here, you will see velocity, color, age, lifetime, radius, distance, unique ID, which we don't get as vertex map or vertex color, alignment, angular velocity. This is all the point data, the particle data that gets saved. And all this data is accessible to you, including some more of this stuff in Redshift as well. So you can do colorizations. I may do some examples today as well. So this is all particles. The concept of particles is relatively simple. It's just points that have data on them. That's all. But that is just the basis of a particle system. The power of particle system comes from the way we control these particles. And let's say the default state of particles is to move. So if I press play, they move. The speed by which they move, the direction which they move, and all the other parameters, for example, lifetime, which is very important, are controlled by this basic emitter. So let's go through this very, very quickly and tell you what this does. This uses a shape to emit, and it can be a circle, it can be a cube, and it can be a sphere, or you can use a mesh emitter to emit from a mesh with various types of things you can do, a mesh from polygon selections and stuff like that. You can reproduce, which is what is also known as spawning, where we can create particles from other particles, from their positions, and we can use their velocities and their colors and all that and inherit them. And then we have spline emitters, where you just create a spline, you put a spline emitter here, and automatically the spline emitter is going to take this inside and use it for emission, and now you have emission from that spline. If I remove these objects here, you'll see that we can emit from the spline, and it makes things quite interesting. Good. So the emission is the first stage of creating particles. And what you will see, which is common, and I'm not going into a lot of detail because you can see these things in the tutorials, but if you do have questions, I am going to look. I already see a question capitalized. Fantastic. From My Motion Graphics. I'll be with you in a second. So these parameters, they pretty much apply to the particles the moment they're emitted at frame 1. And we have the size of the emitter, from which area. If you make this, let's say 0, we're going to emit from a point. So that's the concept of this. So let's go back here and reset to default. We can enable disable, and this will allow us to turn it on at a certain time, although we don't really need to. We can tell it to start at frame 30. So it will start emitting at frame 30, a second in. And we have the 3 emission modes. Short is just emit these particles at that particular time. So it's a one-off emission. a constant, which shoots a number, a rate per frame per second, and a pulse, which allows us to do regular pulses. So this will create every 15 frames a pulse of particles. So we have quite a few things. And all these modes apply to the mesh emitter as well as the spline emitter and so forth. So there are many things you can do with the emissions themselves. In the properties overall, we have things like the lifetime. The lifetime of particles is a very fundamental part of a particle's behavior. And sometimes you want the particles to live forever, and this is lifetime 0. So you can just extend your timeline as much as you want. The particle is going to keep on staying alive. Oh, I was just about to sing the song "Staying Alive," but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to consider that my Monday present. And underneath most of these parameters, we have variance. Speed is how fast they go per second, 100 centimeters per second, and you can add some sort of variance. And it's interesting when you add the variance, one thing you need to know, this is sort of a spread. So if your speed is 100 and you have a variance of, let's say, 50, what this does, it adds half of the 50, so it subtracts half of the 50 from this and adds half the 50 from that. So it's a spread of 50 centimeters per second with 100 as the baseline. So this will emit particles that go between 75 centimeters per second and 125 centimeters per second. And you can see this if you make this 90, and you'll see that the particles are going to have quite a huge spread. And don't forget, I was emitting a pulse, but if you just make a shot, you'll see they're going anything between 100 and what did I do there? 190, from 10 to 190 centimeters per second. And generally, this is the way you will make particles look a bit more natural by adding a variation on the speed, maybe 50 and 40 here, adding some sort of lifetime, let's say 25 frames with a spread of 10. And let's make our emitter emit continuously. And because it's very performant, just go and add a few zeros here, and you get a lot of particles. Now, there are ways to slow your simulation down, because if you are querying too much data and Cinema 4D needs to access the data from the GPU, bring it to the CPU, do something, send it back to the GPU, and so forth, that is what creates the essential slowdowns. The core of the system is extremely performant. And this is something I always like to show, and it will be to take a sphere, make it my favorite around 30, which is my favorite sphere radius, right click and go simulation tags and add a Pyro emitter. And let's go to the same object and add a mesh emitter, and let's add a Pyro Advect. Pyro Advect allows the particles to be advected, and advection means that the velocity of a fluid system, in this case, the Pyro, is going to affect the particles. And now the Pyro is going to affect these particles. Let's go here and do. So let's go and do that. How many zeros do you want me to add? Right, let me see the first answer. I'm going to add those zeros. How many zeros do you want me to add? Let's see. I'm looking at the chat. Zeros. Don't be ridiculous. Come on. No one? You don't want to see zeros? 4 zeros. 10 zeros. Right. I'll go right between. I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So what do we have here? Is it 10 million, 1 million, 10 million, whatever it is? Press play. And there you have your particles, right? So how many particles are these? This is 1, 2, 3, only 10 million particles. Okay, I'm going to try the 20, I mean, because why not? 20 million particles. Okay. Per second. Yeah, it's getting slower, right? So the core of the system is extremely performant. And everyone wants 10 zeros. Okay, let's give it a rest. So the core of the system is very performant. But there are subsystems which, of course, do not work in GPU. And that requires Cinema 4D to go every frame and bring all the data back from the GPU. And usually this is the bottleneck that all CPU GPU systems have, and that is transferring huge amounts of data back and forth. The reason it shows its performance in that particular configuration is that both the particles and the pyro get uploaded and everything happens on the GPU. And don't forget, I have a plenty-year-old RTX 5000 with just 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm pretty sure that if you have one of those modern 4090 show-offy cards and all that, that performance is going to be even better because they have a lot more RAM as well. So let's go down the list of particles. So we've emitted these particles, right? We did a particle emission. And the question becomes, now what? What do we do now? So we can change their speed and direction, their velocity, right? The combination between speed and direction is what we call velocity. And we can use all the forces we have here. So a turbulence is a nice one because very quickly you can sort of give a nice little organic shape to your particles. And this on its own now is cool enough, right? We can just stop it here and just say, hey, that's not bad. Now, I don't want to emit from a rectangle. I'm going to go to sphere and make it smaller, 30, 30, 30, just to create some sort of orby thingy, madoodle, that thing. Good. And I'm going to go and extend their lifetime a bit. I'm going to make it 45 and 25, just so that they do a bit of longer tails. There you go. So this on its own is interesting. And now let's see how else can we control them. Well, number one is always use a bit of friction because that sort of tames your particles. Look at that. That looks more like a flame thing. And let's extend this. I wanted one more zero, talking about zeros. So now we have this quite organic thing. Let me stop it here, right here. And let's go through the tedious process of rendering the particles because in full sarcasm mode, it's extremely difficult. You have to click on your Redshift layout if you have one and press this button. I have to say it slowly to dramatic. So you press this button and you render the particles. So that's how difficult it is. Now you can see that these are little sphery thingies, right? And this is what we call the optimized spheres. This is the default way Redshift renders particles. Now, in terms of how big these spheres are, well, the emitter, one of the things it has, go through all the parameters here, lifetimes and velocities and all that. I explained these in detail. But a radius with a spread, of course. So we have the ability to change to change the radius of each one of these particles. Now, here's one of the fundamental things that when I started working with particles about 632 years ago, I couldn't understand. I went there and I said, I want my radius to be 10, and nothing changed here. What you need to remember is that the particles need to simulate and to be generated with certain things. So if you go and change the color to, let's say, a reddish color or something like that, your particles won't change. They have the data stored. The reason for that is that because you can change the attributes of all these things as your animation evolves, it doesn't make sense to change the color because the system doesn't know if this change of color you wanted it to happen only at the beginning, at a certain frame, under certain conditions, and so forth. So the particles here have their data. If I want to go back to frame 177, right? So I'm going to go 177 and I'm going to go to my animate. This is a nice little trick. You can say simple and it will just stop at 177 here. And I'm going to rewind and press play and I can turn this off because both of them work on the GPU. I just want to make sure it's going to go to 177 just for consistency's sake. And now I can press play and you'll see your huge particles with that different radius. Now, having said that, we do have render control over certain things. And if you go to the particle group, which is the owner of these points, and you add a Redshift object, everything turns off because the particle tab, it recognizes that these are particles, has a mode disabled. What we were looking at before was optimized spheres. So once I add the tag and do that, we're back to exactly what we had earlier. But here we can play with a scale. So if at any point you want to change the scale of your particles, you can do it over here. And the reason this is happening is that it's not changing the data of the particles. It's just rendering using a different scale multiply. It multiplies whatever the radius is by this and draws the dot. So I'm going to set this back to 1. I'm going to go back to my emitter, and I'm going to set this, let's say, to 3. And I'm not going to put any variance on. Okay, so now I can just press play and stop it and see the particles wherever I want to see them. I think the radius is too big, so I'm going to make it 0.5. And again, you rewind, you press play, and the performance allows you to do these sort of tests with very little lag. Now, talking about the data, let's assume that I want to change the radius and the color over time, because that is one of the things we do with particles. We start with some sort of color, some sort of radius, some sort of um, radius variation and whatnot. But what if I want these particles to be born bigger and to go smaller, to become smaller as their life expires? Now, some of these effects require you to have a finite lifetime. For example, if your particle has an infinite lifetime and you tell it, well, halfway through its lifetime, do this. Well, there is no halfway of infinity. And my name is Athanasius, which means immortal. I know very well what that means. So when a particle is if a particle is going to live forever, there is no 50% of lifetime. So when you're doing lifetime effects, you need to remember that particles should be treated like normal humans and not like me. So here we do have a lifetime. So we can tell the system to go approximately 50% of its lifetime and do something, or do some sort of range mapping, which is what I'm going to show you later. So we're going to play with two things. Number one, we're going to play with the particle radius. Let's start with 1, okay? And if you want to see the radii in your viewport, the particle group has some draw overrides, and you can draw the radius. Look at that. That's beautiful. So now I can see the radius of the particles. And if I rewind and press play, you'll see they're quite bigger. But this will allow me to see both the color, which is a default, and the draw size. You can always make them bigger if you want to. I mean, that's cool. You can just sit all day, do this, and tell your colleagues that you are art directing. Look at that. Look at that. You can't decide on the actual size. Now, let's go and do that. Now, to do those kind of things, you need to do a couple of mappers. And we have the color mapper and we have the data mapper. And the reason they're called mappers is that depending on how our animation is evolving, what's happening, the particles are growing older and wiser and losing their hair and becoming more smart. Sorry, I was self-projecting. We need to tell them what to do in their lifetime. Okay, so let's start with the color. And exactly, Fred, see, that's it. Fred gets it. Shh, I'm directing. That's precisely what you need to do. All right, let me show you again. You go here and say, shh, I'm directing. Right, and you can play some music and all that. Now, we have a friction, we have a turbulence. This is applied to all the particle systems we may have in our system. And I'm going to start with, let's start with the color, which is more obvious. The color mapper require, like the both mappers, require you to tell it, what am I mapping? And we have property, field, and noise. Let's do the property, which is simple. And we can always go with an absolute age. An age for particles is expressed in frames, as far as you can see here. The minute a particle is born is 0 frames old. A frame later, it's 1 frame old. So if you have particles that are emitting constantly, the particle that is emitted on frame 50 will be 0 frames old on frame 50. On frame 51, it will be 1 frame old, and so forth. So what I'm going to do now is not, I can go the age, or I can use one of those things which is called age percentage. And what this does, it tells it, well, your particles have different lifespans, right? We have lifespans from, what is that, 20 to 70. So I want halfway through their lifetime to start changing color. So I want to go and say, let's say, no, I'm going to start from 0. And I'm going to say to 100%. So from the moment a particle is born until the moment it dies, regardless of how long that particle is going to live, that's why it's a percentage, I want you to change the color to go from red all the way through the gradient to blue. So what's going to happen here is that the particles, when they're born, they're going to be red. Halfway through their lifetimes, at the golden years of their wisdom and brilliance, I've got my birthday next month, sorry. They're going to be yellow, and at the end of their lifetimes, they're going to be blue. Now, if you rewind and press play, you will see that that's what happens. So we already have this first differentiation in what the particles are doing in terms of their color. And the color is dictated 100% by at which each particle, at which percentage of its age exists. So let's leave this as it is. The other thing I want to do is something similar, but with the scale, the radius. So because the radius is not a color, I'm going to use a data mapper. The data mapper has a slightly different way of working, but it has some extra functionality, but the essence is the same. I'm going to go back to my age percentage, and I'm going to say from 0 to 100% again. I can change these numbers. What's going to happen, it's going to take those values, and it's going to map whatever values I put here. Go here and look at all these parameters you can change. The radius is 1. Now remember, I'm emitting particles with a radius of 1 and no variance at all, okay? So I'm going to go to Data Mapper and say, okay, let's do that. How big is the biggest particle I'm going to create? And the lower here is not if it's big or small. It has to do with the lower in. When the age of the particle is 0, so when it's born, I want the radius to be quite chunky. And when the particle dies, I want the radius to be quite small, okay? But this, it will be changed by this curve here. So these numbers here, you map them to this curve. The upper part is the lower part is the lower number, no, the opposite. That was the opposite, yeah. So the upper out is on the top, and the lower out is on the bottom. So upper and lower. This means that, I can make them the opposite, 0.2 and 5. So look at that. So they start small, right? That's the lower, 0.2. Let's advance a few frames. If you want to see what's going on, you can advance a few frames. They start small. Halfway through their lives, they grow to be big, and then they go small again. And you can change this as much as you want. So you can reset it to make it linear. So now the particles are going to go from small to big, and that's why I did the opposite. I want to go from big to small. So they're going to be born large, and as this progresses upwards, they're going to reach this number here. At least that was my plan. Oh yeah, they're born chunky from 0 to 100 age percentage. They're going to go from 5 to 0.2. Let me make this 10. Oh, that's interesting. Let me think. Why is this? Oh, yes, right. Here's another concept of what's happening. So the hierarchy, right? This is an important lesson. So pay attention, right? Are you paying attention? Paying attention. Good. So, and this is something that I've done it a million times. It still gets me, and that's because I'm rushing it. Here's how the object manager interprets. First, the data mapper maps the data at frame 0, okay? But there's a small catch. There are no particles yet. See? There are no particles. The particles are born further down. Then the color is changed. Then the friction is applied. Then the turbulence is applied. But there are no particles. So what happens is that when the basic emitter emits the particles, these particles are emitted after everything has been executed, right? This goes through the list every frame. And the particle now is this color and has this radius. Because this guy told them to do something before they were born. Wait for your kids to be born first before you tell them what to do. All we have to do is take everything and put it down here. Now what's going to happen is a particle is going to be born. The data mapper, it's going to change its color. It's going to make it, change its radius. It's going to make it 10. Then the color mapper is going to make it red. Then the friction is going to be applied, then turbulence. And then they're going to come back from the GPU. If I press play now, there you go, 10 centimeter particles. So it's it's important to know that if you use mappers before the emission, you're going to have 1 frame lag. So make sure that you think in that forwards way in terms of time. And now you will see that we're getting exactly what we wanted. And let's go to color map, sorry, the data mapper, and that's too big. Make it 5. And there you go. They're born 5. I can go and say, well, they're born 5. They grow a bit. Then they do a little jump. They become, actually, they become 5 again, because don't forget, the bottom number is the lower. So they're going to become 5 again. They're going to get bigger. They're going to stay bigger. And then they're going to get smaller. So you will see these change happening. So big, small, big, and there you go. And now they're going to sort of fade out. Look at them fading out. And all this translate to your Redshift, because it does. So the colors and all that are going to translate over there. Let me undo and move back, and we have this little particle thingy-madoodle happening. Yeah, and you can see it. Redshift will catch up when it can. It gives priority to the viewport, and you stop and it plays, and you stop and it plays, and so forth. Now, here's another great little thing, how you can, let's say, game the system. It's not gaming, it's how things work. Let's assume that I'm not absolutely certain what color I want my particles to be, right? And that is the essence of being a creative director. You never know what you want, and you ask the freelancers to do it for you. Did I just say that loud? Sorry, I apologize to anyone that was offended by my sarcasm. So what you can do, you can tell this color mapper, instead of map from red to yellow to blue and all that, to create some sort of color ramp over here. So I can go and just right click over here and we set to default. Nah, that's a default. So black and white. Boom. Let's go. White to black, black and white. Do whatever you want here. Let's go. Boink. So this is, you can right click and say, let's make it linear. There we go. We have a linear gradient here. Now, if I press play, you will see that my particle color is going to be linear. There you go. But because I'm a deep thinking individual and I want to try a few things, what you can do, you can go and create a material and drop it on the particle group, right? That's what holds. Now you can see that the material overrides everything. There's no particle color because we've overridden all these spheres with this particular color. And go in here. Let's dock it. That's my favorite thing to do. Dock this down here. There we go. And let's make some space. Zoom out. Do that. We can go here and use user data. And that's what contains all our particle data. Other than the string, every other one contains some sort of particle-y thingy. Now, in one of my tutorials, I have a full list of what is mapped to this. But whatever case, you just select any of these and you go over here, presets, and find particles. And most of these, not all, but most of these do apply. Color user data now is that black and white color. So if you go and say, I want my particle color, and I stick it in the color here, now the particles are going to regain that black and white color. Plus, we have now reflections and all that beautiful stuff. So what I can do here is use one of my favorite, if not the favorite, node, the ramp. Bum, bum, and now I can recolorize them into anything I want. So select the ramp. Let's go down here, and you can go and load whatever beautiful ramp you want. And here are your particles. And the colorization is instant because the data is already on the particle. You're just remapping that data. So you could do this. And not only you could do this, you can say that, well, let's take a range of this and make them glow. So you can take another ramp and put it over here. And let's go to, I think it's alt input. Yep, it's alt input. And let me go here and say, okie doke. Let's go and tell the emission to be 5, expose the color. And what I'm going to do is go to my emission color and put this here. Now, you can see that this now is, well, it could be interesting, but I'm trying to do that. Let's go to my little ramp here and say, well, I want the emission to be only in a certain range of the age. And remember, it's 0 to 100%. That's how we defined it. Let's get rid of everything here. Select everything, shift. And let's go and create a white one. Let's create a black one here. Black, and another black one here. So now what I'm doing, I'm eyeballing the amount of lifetime, and I'm creating, and this could be any color you want, and it will be glowy. It will be emissive color. Make it green because we don't have any. Do we have green there? Yeah, and of course I have an enormous amount of emission. But in any case, the idea here, you can zoom in these. You press just your number 2 key, and you can zoom in to do all sorts of fancy stuff. And I can say that those particles at that lifetime, I want them to glow. And if you want to see the actual glow, just go add a Redshift camera, turn it on, go here, go to optical lens effects, not optical, and override the bloom and bring this down. You will see those are the ones that are going to glow. And let's go here and set my emission to, let's say, 10. And I can change these values, and you can see those are the ones that are glowing. Right. So there are ways to gerrymander the data. So you can do various things with the already embedded data that exists on the particles without having to regenerate them. So one bit of advice, if you get into the whole particle world and all that, would be to think, if you're going to do color changes, and the color changes are within a range that is structured, like the age of the lifetime and so forth, you can always just map these to regular gradients, and then use that, especially for the colors and the emissions and whatnot. Okie doke. Now I think it's time to go and check out some questions. All right, let's see now. I'm going to go up the list. Just going to go up the list. All right. Wow. New York City, 152 people. I see some socializing going on. Good, good. Artists need to socialize and start working together. If you have opportunities to go to shows like NAB, did anyone go to NAB? I didn't. I was mentally there. I'm still trying to recover from 2019 when I was at NAB. Okay. All right. Let's see general questions. Right. If I miss something, someone just scream. So, okay. Let's see this. Oliver, you. I am personally new to Synapse and I have seen a lot of tutorials for making liquids with the legacy particle system. How does one create liquid with new particle system? Well, we can't create liquids. We can create the illusion of liquids. But nonetheless, that's an interesting question. So because these are point objects, if you create a basic emitter and just emit, there you go. And let's go and add some gravity. And let's go and add some friction. And I'm going to say gravity first, friction later, increase this to 60. So just so that these sort of slow down. There you go. And now that I have, why not add a turbulence as well after the friction? Let's see. And let's do this. We get some sort of variation-y thingy, something like that. Well, because these are point objects, you can mesh them just like we mesh any point object. So let's go and do that. I'm going to emit 1,000 particles, go to my particle group and put it under a volume builder and put it under a volume mesher. And this is not liquid, right? It's not fluid. Mind you, when you go and select in your volume builder particle group, you can play with the radius, or you can tell it to use the particle radius you have, right? So make sure your voxel size is always smaller than your radius, otherwise you will generate nothing. You can put a smooth SDF here and maybe set it to 1, maybe Laplacian flow, and you have, a liquid or liquid. So you can do things like that. So you can simulate that. And because we have gravity and collisions and all that, you can get some stylized effects, but it's not an actual liquid solver. We don't have true particle-to-particle interaction other than the blend, flock, and predator-prey. We don't have particle collisions and so forth. But in any case, this is how you would do those effects with other particle systems, and the method is transferable over here. But here we have a bit more control. So that will be, you can get more things done. So let's see, point data only question. All right, let me see this. Right. Question by Crazy Alexander. Can you make this into VDB and import it into Unreal? Well, we can export VDBs. Yeah, we can convert into VDB. I mean, that's it. Now we have a volume builder. Instead of an SDF, I'm going to export as fog. So this is now a VDB. You can go and you can export this VDB if you right click and bake as Alembic, or you're going to save it. You can save, you can cache this, and you can open it in Unreal. So we can export VDBs. But you can import Alembic in Unreal, if I'm not mistaken, right? Alembic is supported. So points is Alembic, so you can just cache this. And yeah, and these are your various attributes are going to have those names that we had. Okay, let's go further down here. Sound was not okay. It's going to be interesting. So, show. Hi, hello. Object raising from ground, such as sand or snow, show this simulations. I mean, the principle is fairly simple. I don't know if it's going to work for what you're trying to do. So let's create, let's do this. I'll do it with a plane because why not? And let's make someone's head. Right. Oh, looks oddly. Oh, wait a minute. Let me see. Yeah, familiar. So let's animate this. I'm going to go from here. If you like sound effects, tell me. I have a lot of these. Right, let's do that. Right, that's the sound effect. So it goes up, and let's say that's the effect we want. Now let's make this a collider. All right, first of all, let's do some particles. What I want to do here is put some particles on this surface, but I don't want them to be moving. So select the plane and say Mesh Emitter. Because you don't want them to be moving, and you want them to be a single shot, go to shot and emit 10,000 particles, 100,000 particles. Right, I'm going to stick with 100,000 and go down to this to the velocity and set it to 0. Right, so now we're going to emit some particles, but they're not going to do anything particular. Right, so 300 frames. Now I want these to interact with the sphere. To interact with objects that are part of the simulation system, we use these 4 modifiers. Let me. You can't see the modifiers. There we go. Let me turn this off. There we go. I caught this this time. Last time I left another screen on. All right. So these 4 modifiers here, collide, pyro, advect, stick, and surface attract, react to simulation objects. So I need to take my plane and my sphere and convert them by using colliders or rigid bodies. You can do whatever is appropriate for the moment. And now we need to tell the particles to do something with these things. So let's start with a collide. The collide just collides with the particle. So it's going to go oink, right? So it's pushing them upwards. The other thing I need to do is add some sort of gravity, because after this happens, oh, it does fall, right? Now, because the particles are generated on this surface, they don't have enough room. Go here and check this out. Look at that. They are right on the surface and they're going to be dragged down. They didn't have enough space to avoid the collision. So a couple of things. You can create another plane that emits these particles, or a basic emitter. It doesn't really matter. So I can remove this emitter here and create a basic emitter ever so slightly higher. And let's make this 400 by 100 by 400. I'm going to just place it on the ground and emit my static particles, 3 zeros and 0 speed. And I'm going to emit from ever so slightly higher. Let's try that. Let's see if that's going to hold them. All right, yeah, some of them fell. If you want to optimize the collision, go to your project settings, go to simulation particles, and you can increase your substeps, and this will provide you with better particle collision. Or distance them. What else do we have in the collide? You can change the mode to interaction and radius. which will give you sort of a buffer of a radius as well. So there are quite a few ways you can do this. And yeah, they keep falling. I think the one's falling off the edge. Yeah, I think it's the one's falling off the edge. But in any case, let's let the other ones fall. And you can see this is raising them up. And then it's up to making your collider objects react a bit differently with what you're trying to do. We can tell them to stick, so they will stick on the surfaces. And here it uses the secondary surface to stick. You can exclude a particular object from sticking. So I can say, I do not want the plane to stick. So I only want the sphere to stick. And now it's picked them up. Then you can tell them under certain conditions to do something else, to start falling from the side and so forth. But for an effect like this is the general direction you would go. So that was, that was that. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Particle object. Okay. How to particle object mode. Can you explain what you mean by particle object mode? Do you mean to clone an object on each particle or to emit from an object? Yeah, reply further down with an explanation. This guy is a legend, right? Just in case you missed it. Talking about this guy. Thank you. So, Alexander Yasu, that means hi. To your health, basically. 99% of greetings are about health. All right, let's go. Let's see, what do we have? Oh, right. How do I get that new toolbar to the right hand side? No, that is not built in. This is my setup. Go watch the Cineversity videos in the overview. The second video after the intro, I think, is the one that shows how to create this, right? It's fairly simple. It takes a couple of minutes to do. Dock it, you save this, and you have it up here for as long as you want. All right, let's see. Particles. Can you data map? Oh, interesting questions coming through. Can you data map particles with Pyro? Data map. What would you like to do with that? Like custom attributes and stuff like that? We don't support custom attributes currently. Okay. Okay. I'm going. So the size, right? Let's see. So the size in the data mapper makes the size in the emitter obsolete. It doesn't. Well, that is one interpretation, right? It's not obsolete. It's that the whole function of particle systems is to generate the particles with a specific data set, and then optionally, and that's what the emitter does, right? It tells you what color you are, how big you are, how fast you're traveling, how long you're going to live, and or if you're spinning, not spinning, and all that. But the whole purpose of particles is to be able to change that, right? So if I go particle group and enable the handles, right? So this is going to create these little axes so I can see how the particles are moving. If I want to, if I put a turbulence here, which is something you can see, they're going to move in all sorts of directions, right? So their initial velocity, you can say it's been overridden. I would say it's been advected in a certain way. It's been changed. So from their original positions, we tell them to do something. From their original scale, we tell them to do something. So yeah, we are overriding things, but that's a whole the essence of particles. If you want to retain the data, then you don't override it, essentially. But yeah, that was an interesting comment and a correct one for that matter. Okay, let's see where I am here. Okay, density dissipation. That can you data map particles with Pyro? Okay. Let's see. With data. No, currently we can't. We can't do that. We can only do advection currently. Because with thinking particles, we can actually do that, but that's not currently possible. So that's the unfortunate answer for that. Okay, let's go down. Yeah, again, it doesn't make it obsolete. It just changes it. Yeah, so I guess that's correct. All right. Here's an interesting one, which is gonna lead me to MoGraph. Is there a way to render it like it's shown in the viewport, so the circle around it? Ha! Dan, I have a surprise for you, because this means you will learn something about MoGraph. Let's go back to that fabulous, artistic, inspired, beautiful, and all those other things. So let's assume this is what I have here, okay? And with the radii, with all that. So I'm going to take a MoGraph cloner, and I'm going to clone a circle, right? Make it a child. The cloner in object mode allows us, just like with all our particle systems, to use the particle group. Don't put the emitter in here. It doesn't do anything. Particle group. Boink. Now I'm going to hide my particle group. We're going to get a lot of splines. It's going to take its time, right? We're generating splines here. Come on, particle group. Great. Make your circle 1, radius 1. Right? Come on. So now we have the circles, but they're not looking at me. And that's the trick. Go to MoGraph and get a target effector. And target the camera. Boink. This should give you the same sort of effect with the appropriate amount of patience. And in the cloner, make sure you're using particle scale. So it's going to change each and every one of the, let's go multi and see if that's going to work. It should be a bit faster. But here's your effect. There it is. Circles are pointing the camera. You can turn it around, so forth. So you were just missing the target and the cloner and all that. Excellent. Let's see. Let's see. Atmosphere. So Dan, you got your answer. Oh yeah, FUIs. Please. You want to see some FUI stuff? Let me show you FUI stuff. And I've got a tutorial about that. So I'm going to bring up on my other secret screen something called up, down, left, right. Up, down, left, right. Up, down, left, right. Pardon me, I have about 1 million things here. Good. And I showed how to do this the other day. I want to talk about FUIs. There's one little setup. Go watch the tutorials. It's fun. Boom. That's it. Teaser. And stew work, I cannot read. I'm not going to say what language it is because I do not know. I would assume Chinese, but sorry, I can't read it. Now, let's go. Fabian, you're not disturbing me. That's what I'm here for. As I said before, this is I guess it's the best PC. I'm just going to go scoot over. It's a Dell Precision mini workstation 3640. Now, it is, I would say, 5 years old, and it has some Xeon in there and 16 core and an RTX 5000 with 16 gigs of RAM. The equivalent, if you can buy now with equivalent hardware and all that, I don't know, you're going to get it a couple $1,000, maybe less. I don't know. Because the speed of my card, my GPU, is approximate to a 2080, something like that. That's the speed. So I don't, it's pretty much the most stable and the most stable PC I've ever had. It's the only PC that I found is equivalent in terms of quality to a Mac, which I've had for most of my life. So yeah, not tremendous specs, but still it's very performant, the system itself. Okay, let's see. I don't do so. Crazy Alexander, I've used Unreal Engine in the past. I don't have time anymore. As excited as I am, I think the for UE stuff, check out my very good friend Jonathan Wimbush. He's done a lot of stuff, and you can hit him up on Twitter as well. And yeah, I wish I had time. I don't know. Maybe I semi-retire, or I find a bag of money, and then I just do tutorials for Cinema 4D and everything else. In any case, let's see. Marina, there we can't render using standard render particles directly. We can render using MoGraph. So yeah, basic emitter. You do this. You change the colors. Let's go and do a color mapper and let's say 0 to 90 frames, absolute value. They're going to change color, and you get your MoGraph cloner. You get your sphere. Make sure if you're using radius to use 1 centimeter here, and make sure you make this into a multi-instance, and you clone on an object, and that object is the particle group. And what else they want to do? And you will see that they inherit the color. So multi-instance as well. It's quite performant. Let's try. Let's try 100,000 particles. So that'll be 100,000 cloners. Right, it's not bad. Okay, so you can render using standard render as long as you use a cloner instead of a particle system. Let's go down the list. Yeah, I haven't tried the hair. So one of the old solutions was to use the hair thingy-madoodle for particles. So you would go to any point object and you'd add some hair. So I don't know, let's try this. Why not? Because we're here, let's go standard and let's go and add. I think it was render. Where was hair? Do hair render. We used to be able to render. Yes, but we can't use the colors and all that, as far as I know. Why don't you experiment and come back to me? You can all find me at, let me bring up the branding here. Actually, the banners. I should have my, there we go. So both Jonas's and my Twitter handles, Trixer handles, NosemanGR. If you have any questions, need some support and all that, I always reply one way or another, and usually it's not rude. So feel free to ask your questions. Okay, let's see. Here we have a nice question. We have quite a few nice questions. Let's see. Okay, here we are. Smoke into water. Oh, that's a response. I don't know. Can you emit particles from the texture of an object? Right. This is not directly, right? Let me say that, not directly, but indirectly you can do it. So let's say I have a certain material I want to put here. I can't apply the material and tell it to do what I want it to do. You can use vertex maps, and because you can use vertex maps, you can use a vertex map with a shader field. So this will be, let's say we have a dense model over here. You do need the points to do that. And let's say we want to emit from a texture. You will have to go and add a vertex map in this particular case, because that's what will control, let's say, the not the rate, but where it's going to emit from. We can't control the rate. I did a quick tip about this subject. And you go and you add a shader field here. And let's go and add something. Let's go and add a noise, and just for demonstration purposes. And let's contrast this so we can sort of see it a bit better. Lower clips and high clips. So we can use this data now. If I want to emit from the higher values over here, I can only emit from polygon selection. So you need to go other tags, do a polygon selection, drag this in the polygon selection, and now this is going to dictate where the emission is going to come from. I can make a Cinema 4D standard material if I want to see this and apply it here. And let's make this red. And what we should have here is a red There you go. My threshold was a bit low. There you go. So you can emit from these areas by using this polygon selection in a mesh emitter and telling it to emit from this geometry and these polygons. And this will emit from those polygons over there. And that's how you would do that. But not directly, not yet. There you go. It's emitting only from those areas. And again, go watch the quick tip for better reference. Okay. Let's go. The chat keeps moving. All right. All right, let's get some praise here. Long-term Maya user, it's unbelievable how Maxon enhanced the system under the hood of Cinema 4D. It's unbelievable how easy you get some results. Fabian, that has always been the case. Okay, thank you very much for the compliment. And it's a compliment towards the developers predominantly. I take part of that credit, by the way. I just like taking credit. Random people, strangers do nice things, and I like to take part of that credit because I just happen to see it, right? And Edwin, don't watch TV, watch the shows. There you go. And ask any questions. And if you have any questions, just ask them. Did I show you that card? You can go and get your questions using a QR code. I'm going to show it later on. Let's see now. What else do we have here? Particles like showing the viewport. Yep, we saw. Why did I miss some questions? When will we see particle-to-particle collision? Oh, that's going to be available. Right? That's going to be available. Okay, let's see. Body of water, fluids. Yeah, that's a bit too much to put together now. I'm reading the same questions. I think it's when someone posts, the whole thing moves up and down. I'm not going to read your question, Andreas, but enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah. Okay. How to emit custom OBJ in particle position? Oh, yeah, that's right. How to emit custom OBJ in particle position? You can emit anything in anything position. Right. Let me show you something here. Let's have some fun. Right, let's have some fun. Let me open a file here. Give me a second, because my naming is a bit. Let me find what I'm trying to show here. Let me find what I'm trying to show. Give me a sec. That's why we need someone else to be around here. Where I made something. I made a quasi crowd simulation, which was, just random. And I think I have it in another folder. Just be patient with me, please. Where is it? I hate this. All right, let's just do it live. If you can't open the file, just do it live. Let's go and grab a running. So we have someone that's running, jogging, running. There you go. There we go. So this is a mocap, part of our amazing asset manager and the capsule drops and all that stuff. Next, let's get a puppet. Let's bring in this gentle person, and let's go here and say, let's do that. That's how you link. Good. Excellent. That's good enough. So what are we going to do now? I'm going to take the mesh of this, and I'm going to put it under a connect object, unweld. And what is my loop time? How many frames does this? So it goes right leg and boom. I think 16. No, it's there. So it's 24. So we're looping 24 frames. So this should be a seamless loop, or I need to remove one if it skips. Oh, it skips. So 0 to 23 is 24 frames. Oh, stop doing that. Anyway, I don't care. So what I'm going to do now is take this connect and save it as Alembic. So you're going to go here and say bake as Alembic. So let me just go here and save it in today's folder. Let me close this. I've got so many secrets. So let me close this and save it as in here, select folder, and it's going to save this Alembic file. Good. Let's take this and delete everything else. We should have this person just doing, 0 to 23 equals 24. Yeah, I apologize. So here's our running character. Good. Let's go and do 150 frames here, and let's loop this. It's going to do that skip, but I don't. Oh, it's not doing a skip. It's doing quite well. There you go. So this character is just running on the spot. What I need to do now is make sure I'm going to make it editable. And now the Alembic data is being transferred to an Alembic tag. I'm going to remove the Fong, so it uses the Fong. I don't need any UVs, just to keep the data cheap. Good. Now I need to bake this to PLA, so point level animation, because what I'm going to do requires keyframes, and this one doesn't have keyframes. So put it here, and what we're going to do is for 0 to 23 frames, I'm going to do it full. I'm just going to bake everything. I'm going to go and bake object. I'm just going to bake PLA. So we are baking the PLA here, the point level animation. Good. And we have that copy now, which has, it should have the same data. There you go. And it's just running. But everything is keyframe. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to use it with MoGraph. Next step, bring up the particles thing. And now let's create a basic emitter. And let's make it a circle. And let's lay it on the ground. And let's tell the emitter to emit the particles, not in normal direction, but in a radial fashion. So this is how the particles are going to be emitted. Great. So what do we do next? We make a cloner. We tell the cloner to clone in object mode and put the particles here. That's number one. Because I'm going to emit humans, I'm going to make the emission a bit less just to begin. And I'm going to shoot. Let's shoot 30 humans. That sounded so terrible. Let's shoot 30 humans. All right, 30 particles, and then the humans can go in the particles. Let's take our object here. Good. I'm going to rotate him because he's going the other way around, 180 degrees, because he needs to point in the plus Z direction. Good. Now let's see what we can do here with this. We have a new mode here that has to do with distance and distance per second. This changes the amount that what this does is for every, let's say 100 centimeters, the particle is going to move. It's going to execute 1 second of that character's animation. So if I take my particles and I emit them at different speeds, we should get a different strides, and I'm going to make them a bit faster. So I want or slower. Let me see. What do I need to do? I need to make it faster so that we get pretty good contact. And now we have a quasi crowd simulation. And whatever has keyframes, the reason I put the keyframes there was because MoGraph requires keyframes in order to use this per second thing. Any animation that comes through MoGraph through the animate mode, it requires to have keyframes to do that. But in any case, yeah, you can randomize the colors, you can add different objects doing different stuff and so forth. And generally, you can, because you can use MoGraph on the cloners, you can have animated objects, you can have whatever you want. What's going to happen if I turn this off? I don't know. In this particular case, nothing's going to happen. But yeah, look at that. You can make these run in various directions. I did a setup, since I'm talking about this, I did a setup that does, there's a little surprise for you. Let me try and find it. I think it was, I've done a lot of tests, right? So somewhere here, randomness, oh, come on, rolling spheres. There you go. This is another implementation of this, but it rolls the spheres and adds. Look at that. It seems that they are looking at each other, but it's just the fact that I'm flocking. I think I shared this on Twixer, and I'm using flock and I'm using look to change directions, and it makes it appear that they are, smelling each other or saying hello and then leaving. But yeah, fun little setup. I did post it. If I didn't, remind me and I'll repost it. Just check my latest posts. Okay, question time. So we answered that. How to dissolve an object with mesh emitter. So I had an example ready for today. I won't have much. I'm going to show you a very quick interpretation of it. That is not the folder. I'm looking in the wrong folder. But what's the date today? There you go, April 22nd. I made something. What did I do with it? Did I throw it away? Oh, no. No, I didn't throw it away. I didn't throw it away. I did not throw it away. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown, sort of dissolving effects. My friend Yang from China, he did some fantastic examples. But this would be a sphere that affects particles at the same time dissolves, so like, if it does it in real time. So something like this. And let me give you a very quick rundown of, and this is going to be, I'm going to close on that note. Give me a sec. Water from our own well. Cheers. I've been talking non-stop. My favorite hobby, talking and complaining. It's either teaching or complaining, but I can never stop. Okay, let's do this. Take my mug off the screen so you can concentrate on the important stuff. This is a general method, by the way. Okay, now let's take a sphere, because what I'm going to show you involves particles in the least and MoGraph in the max. Let's give it an icosahedron. What I like about it is that the spacing between the triangles is not perfectly the same, but close enough. So you can create these homogeneous growths and all that nice stuff. Now, I'm going to make it totally procedurally. It may have some priority issues and all that, but if you go and bake every stage, you're going to be fine. So what I want to do here is I'm going to create a vertex map. I want to seed this so that I want to start the dissolving from a certain point. You can do this in many ways, but I'm going to do it using a little sphere. Let me just park my sphere somewhere. The sphere. Notice, man, the sphere. Park the sphere down here. I'm going to make it quite small. Let's say 5 centimeters. Let's go down here. And I'm going to park it right there. And I just like to do the map and make it 100%. I'll show you why. Now we can see the mesh. Let's get rid of that. And you can see that my field now, my vertex map, has this little value here. Now, in case you didn't know, if you don't, you have to be ashamed of yourselves. But in any case, you can add a freeze layer and set it to grow. Expand this to, let's say, 300 frames, and this will grow. EJ did a fantastic tutorial about how to do this on the Old University. So there you go. We have this growth now. And I'm just going to make it a bit more interesting. You go to the radius, which is the subfields of the freeze layer that controls the actual radius. And what I'm going to add is a random field, and you put it down here. And this random field, I'm going to add my favorite noise. Luca, increase the size a bit, add animation. And what this is going to do, it's going to change the way that gradiates out, right? There you go. So we have an interesting effect going on here. And let's see if I, yeah, interesting effect. I'm going to call this vertex map, just because I'm going to get confused, is initial growth, right? Initial growth. So here's our growth. Now, I'm going to use it in a certain context. But the other thing I want is I want a thin ribbon of a vertex map that represents sort of this area where it's going to be where I'm going to be emitting particles from. And that means I need to have another vertex map and call this, I don't know, line. And what I'm going to do here is drag the previous one, right? So we have the data from the previous one. And I'm going to go and use a curve. What I'm going to do is control click to add a point here and bring the other one here. And what this is going to, I'm just control clicking to add these. What this allows me to do is create some sort of band of something is happening here, right? There you go. Now, the other thing I could do before I do that is add another freeze layer, but the freeze layer has a very specific thing you can do, which is average, which is pretty much blurring, right? No updates or anything like that. It just allows you to blur this. And by blurring it, you're actually allowing to make the data homogeneous. And when I put this, now I have this really interesting front. I'm going to right click and reset this to make my spline linear. I'm going to say you start from there. I'm going to create sort of a square. There you go. So now I have this front line that is being generated based on this. There you go. Go here. Of course, when you use freeze layers, it's good to auto update. I don't want, I said average. Ah, really? Gonna do this to me right now? Rats. See if it works with subfields. Rewind. Oh, clear. Let's see if that's gonna work. You gotta be kidding me. Rewind, press play. Ah, I don't believe this. Get rid of the freeze. I'm gonna get my front line like this. I need to check these things out and see why that didn't work. But in any case, probably a user error, but I'm not going to admit it in public, okay? You're not allowed to say anything. So rewind, press play. Now we have that front line. That looks like a burn, right? That's not, yeah. And if you make your sphere more detailed, you're going to get smaller components. But now what do we have here? We have this data, which ideally we would like all these to disappear. You can use this in the opacity or transparency of the material, or you can use an even more interesting method where you go to MoGraph and create, if you don't know this, it's double shame, the PolyFX, right? And you can apply the PolyFX, and let's add an effector in here. Let's go and add a plane effector. There you go. And the plane effector you put in here, you can tell it what to do. And currently it's pushing all the points. So it disconnects the points and pushes them and does whatever you want. If I go to scale and activate uniform and say -1, it's going to make all these polygons disappear. If you go to fields and in the field you add this, now when you advance, these should, oh yeah, get rid of use deform points. You don't want that because the object is deforming. Look at that. We're getting a dissolving effect, right? And you can use this with some random effector and in the PolyFX. What PolyFX does, it splits the polygons and makes a clone out of each and every one of them. So each polygon now is a clone, and you can use it as if you're changing clones and stuff like that. So I can go here and I can add a random effector, and I can go to this random effect and the same initial growth in here. So let's put the initial growth. So now we get that offset as well, and you can put rotations, and I'm digressing a bit, and rotation, I have to do it. So now it adds that secondary element of, and maybe 555. In any case, so this is what's happening here. So my object dissolving effect is done, and you can do it in any other way. The great thing now is that we have this front line over here, right? This front line. And let's see if we can extend it a bit more. The more you push this closer to here, you can, there you go. I think that's good enough. And I'm going to take my sphere and create a polygon selection. And in this polygon selection, I'm going to add this front line. Right. So these polygons now, in theory, represent that little front line in terms of data. Let's visualize that. Create a standard material, Cinema 4D standard, drag it in here, make it red so we can see it, and drag your polygon selection just like I did earlier. There you go. So these are the polygons we are potentially going to use to create our emission. And let's see if this is going to work. Get a mesh emitter. Let's rewind and a particle group. Tell the mesh emitter to emit from the sphere and only emit from this polygon selection, 10,000 particles per second. And now we're getting particles. Let's change the speed and make them 75 with a spread, or I don't know, 50. Let's give them a particle life of 15 with a spread of 10. Let's increase the direction spread to make them fan out a bit more to break up this uniformity. Rewind, press play, and now we have an effect, right? And finally, because you can use Pyro to emit from vertex maps, your density and all that, just go and add a Pyro simulation. And if, let's go Pyro emitter, let's disable the temperature. Let's add this and put the density map on our Frontline. And I don't even know if this is going to work, but hey, it does work. But damn, yeah. And of course, you can add advection and do all that kind of stuff. But now you have a fully dissolving effect. In any case, that's so cool. And I've done it 5 times today to make sure that it works. Anyway, so it is approximately 27, 28 minutes overrun. So now I'm going to show my face and not respond to any other questions. So here's the deal. Let's bring up those helpful pages I have here, and let's do this. Right. Go to this page here and ask questions. So let me post it. Go here and ask questions. Number 1. Go here and check events. And that's number 2. What else do we have here? Check out all those other links I pasted earlier. And I think there is let me see if I can find it. I need to find to see. I don't know what that is. So come to Ask the Trainer on Thursday, and we'll post all these nice little things because I can't find the relevant information. And the one I'm going to show, of course, is go to this link here and paste this. There you go. And let's see. See, I see questions and I'm compelled to answer them. No, I can't. We have to shut it down. Come on, Ask the Trainer. Yeah, go to Merch Store and use Particle Magic for today and moving forwards to claim your free t-shirt. You only paid for folding and sending. That's pretty much it. So watch the tutorials. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show. I'm totally scatterbrained today. Go to University and check out begin from this particle overview, right? It's an hour and a half. You can skim through a few of these things. Then we have the second one, which is plenty of hours long, particles, objects, so you can see what the settings are and all that. And here I'm putting together certain workflows. In this particular case, let's pause it. In this video, how to emit from mesh points. You'll understand when you watch it. Confine particles 2D plane and so forth. So yeah, just go and watch the tutorials and then come and ask your questions on Thursday or any other day you want. Anyhow, I hope you enjoyed it. Stay engaged with us. Find us on social. Hit me up, me or Jonas. I'm at NosemanGR, and Jonas is at Jonas Pills 3D. And if you ask questions, ask them properly. Simplify your scenes. 9 out of 10 times, the process of simplifying a scene to send it or asking the question gives you the solution. The universe works in mysterious ways. I'm telling you. I've been around for a while. Again, thank you. I always appreciate your viewership. Stay engaged, watch our shows, and yeah, see you in the next one. I need to click a button. So this is, right, let me go here. I need to go here. Oh, where is it? Because usually someone else does it for me. But from now on, I'm going to be the one doing it. And where is the end? I have no idea. I haven't done a DPP by myself. You know something? I'm just going to shut it off. So, love you all. See you soon.